Hey, happy Wednesday morning, everyone, and welcome back to Morning Musing. So good to be with you this morning. I truly appreciate you being with me, spending your time. It's always thrilling and it's humbling when I hear from people, as I have numerous times over the last few weeks, of people who tell me, I start my day with a cup of coffee and Morning Musings by Don K. Preston. Like I said, that's just absolutely thrilling to me. It's so encouraging. And what is especially encouraging is to hear from so many of you who are discovering the truth of covenant eschatology. You're being freed from the shackles of fear. And you're coming to understand that we have a faithful God who has kept his word, who loves us, who cares for us, and has provided for us eternal life in his Son. And so once we rediscover the faithfulness of God in keeping his promises, he didn't postpone anything, he didn't delay anything, he kept his word. Okay, well, I could obviously get started on that a lot. Okay, so this morning I want to examine the claim as we continue our study of the 70 weeks of Daniel chapter 9, 24 and following. When did, and remember, we'll talk about the dispensational view of the 70 weeks as we progress. But for now, I'm looking at the claim that is made by many postmillennialists, many amillennialists, and some preterists, who claim that the 70 weeks ended in 34 or 35 AD. And that what Daniel chapter 9 really means is 70 weeks are determined to determine the fate of the people in the city. Well, look, as I suggested earlier, you cannot say that 70 weeks are determined to determine the fate without thereby going and necessarily and logically saying, well, 70 weeks are determined when the atonement will be made. 70 weeks are determined to determine when sin will be put away. 70 weeks are determined when prophecy will be fulfilled. Folks, that's not what Daniel says. 70 weeks are determined on your people and on your city. I say this kindly, I say this respectfully. Any view that puts the actual fate, not the determination of that fate, but any view that puts the fate of the city and the people outside the parameters, outside the fence of the 70 weeks is simply wrong. Now, I want to share with you a few comments in regard to this view that the 70 weeks ended in 34-35 AD, made by individuals, made by men who also take the view, or at least they have, that the term seal, vision, and prophecy did in fact refer to the revelatory process. This is from Kenneth Gentry's book, Before Jerusalem Fell, the 1989 edition, page 135. Quote, "It has been pointed out by several evangelical scholars that also contained in Daniel is an important prophecy which seems to tie, listen carefully, seems to tie the close of the canon and all prophetic revelation to the AD 70 destruction of the temple." Daniel 9:24 reads, and he gives it there, and then continues. This 70 weeks of years period is widely held among conservative scholars to refer to the first advent of Christ. The usefulness of this passage is enhanced by the fact that Christ draws from it in his Olivet Discourse, which is clearly related to the AD 70 destruction of the temple. This argument deserves greater explication, but it may lead us too far afield from our primary concern, which is revelation in that particular book. Now watch. He then wrote in his book, The Charismatic Gift of Prophecy. Now you have to catch the power of the shift that takes place here. All right? In his Before Jerusalem Fell, 1989, he was saying that Daniel 9 refers to the completion of the revelatory prophetic process by AD 70. The canon was completed, in other words, by AD 70. But in this book, he seems to vacillate. This is the book, Charismatic Gift of Prophecy. This is page 54. He says that the term seal, vision, and prophecy, quote, by this is meant that Christ fulfills and thereby confirms the prophecy. Now, something very subtle takes place here. He says the prophecy. And by that he means the prophecy of Daniel 9. Well, I could almost admit to that, but it's not what the text says. There is no definite article in the Hebrew. It's not there. It is not seal up the vision and the prophecy. It is seal, vision, and prophecy. Mr. Gentry has very subtly changed the focus of Daniel chapter 9 from the fulfilling of all vision and prophecy to the fulfilling of Daniel 9 itself. But he still entraps himself. And he says, in his work against Gruden on the prophetic gift, and this is in the Charismatic Gift of Prophecy, he says, that which is perfect, of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, there is coming a time when will occur the completion of the revelatory process of God. He offers a footnote to that comment that reads this, quote, we even believe that this idea, the completion of the revelatory process, is contained in a proper understanding of Daniel 9:24 statement regarding the sealing of vision and prophecy. Then, however, in 2009, he said, in his book, Dominion, the Revised Version, quote, although the prophecy clearly specifies the terminus of the 69th week, such is not the case with the terminus of the 70th. That's blatantly false, but nonetheless, the exact event that ends the 70th is not so significant for us to know. Apparently, at the stoning of Stephen, Christianity's first martyr, the covenantal proclamation begins turning toward the Gentiles, i.e. Acts chapter 8, verse 1. Okay, you have to take or catch the power of what Gentry has done. The 70 weeks ended with the stoning of Stephen. Let's put that 34-35 AD, shall we? Watch the train coming. The 70 weeks ended with the stoning of Stephen and the turning to the Gentiles in Acts chapter 10. But the 70 weeks would end when the all prophetic revelation, i.e. the canon, was completed. Seal, vision, and prophecy. Therefore, the canon, all prophetic revelation, was fulfilled, completed by AD 34-35. What? Do you see how Gentry has completely, totally boxed himself into a position that demands that all vision, all prophecy, number one, was fulfilled, which he does not believe, but his view demands it. And number two, his view, as stated in his books, seal, vision, and prophecy means to complete the canon. Stated it in 2 books. Seal, vision, and prophecy means to complete the canon. Seal, vision, and prophecy is confined to the 70 weeks. The 70 weeks ended 34-35 AD with the stoning of Stephen, calling of the Gentiles. Therefore, the canon was completed in 34-35 AD. Sorry, folks. That doesn't work. Now look, I have more in-depth discussion of this in my book, exposing Mr. Gentry's fallacies in regard, and look, I'm not picking on Kenneth Gentry. This is the view of Gary DeMar, of Keith Matheson, of many, many prominent dominionists and postmillennialists. It is the view of many amillennialists, and again, of some preterists. But let me reiterate, you cannot say that the 70 weeks ended in 34-35 AD and admit that seal, vision, and prophecy has to do with either the completion of the revelation of God or the fulfillment of all prophecy. Either one of those views, doesn't matter. You cannot admit that seal, vision, and prophecy refers to either one of them without saying that the entire revelatory process ended in 34-35 AD and or all prophecy was fulfilled by 34-35 AD. Well, that violates what Jesus said in Luke 21-22 when he predicted the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70 and said, "These be the days of vengeance in which all things that are written must be fulfilled." See, it doesn't work. It simply does not work. The 70 weeks did not end in 34 or 35 AD. Look, go to my website, order the book, 70 Weeks Are Determined for the Resurrection. Be sure to tell me you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook. You will get a free copy of Can God Tell Time? Okay, we've got more on the time of the end of the 70 weeks on the flip side. We'll see you there.